Good morning, Turkey. I hope you are fine and that your families are safe.
Yeah, we are fine. Where are you at the moment?
I'm in Madrid.
Yeah, you're in Madrid. Perfect. Madrid. I know you are very familiar with Turkey, right?
Yes, I'm very familiar. I have been responsible for the integration of the Internal Audit department of Guarantee Bank. And I had the luxury of living in there for almost 1 year and a half. So I'm very familiar with Turkey.
Yeah, perfect. Where was your favorite place in Istanbul?
Favorite place? Oh, the Bosphorus.
Yeah.
Bosphorus is fantastic. Any place in the Bosphorus is very nice.
Okay, great, great. So we are very excited for your presentation, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Mehmet. Well, the question, Mehmet, is can Agile be implemented in internal audit? Because there is a certain thought that Agile is very nice for other areas, but internal audit has unique properties like a strict methodology or way of working. So there's always this thought that maybe it's not that possible to implement it in internal audit. But yes, it can be implemented in internal audit, and I can show you why. So I'm going to share the presentation with you now. Okay. Yes, it can be done in internal audit. It can be done if you apply the key elements for success in implementing in internal audit. And it can be done if you rethought or you do re-engineering over the audit life cycle. And not only it can be done, it will help you to be a more productive internal audit area and a more adaptive to change. And since you will be more adaptive to change, you can adapt to new crises like the pandemic. And I'm going to show you also how Agile methodology has helped us to navigate through the pandemic. Let's go into it. What are these key elements for success? Well, the first key element that you have for success is to think about it before you act. So ask yourself the why. Why should an internal audit area go Agile? We, in Guarantee BBVA, we didn't jump into transforming the internal audit area into Agile just for the sake of it. We were thinking in 2018 about how to improve the execution in internal audit. Most importantly, we were thinking, okay, we have come a long way, but we still have room for improvement to have two main things: a better quality of the audits and a faster execution of the audit. And how can you do that? You need to have a better understanding and a more updated understanding of the risk that you run in the internal audit area. So you need a closeness to the audited areas. That will allow you to have better prioritization where the risks are. And on top of that, we needed some more talent management, retention, and attraction of the talent. So that's where we wanted to go. And if you know the why, where do you want to go, then you can start with the how. And how could we do it? Instead of starting from scratch, we knew that something had to work in the business development area of BBVA. And that something was implemented Agile in the digital banking of BBVA. In that area, it had brought to the table lower execution times, better quality, better productivity, and engagement of the team, so much so that for 3 years in a row, 2017, 18, and 19, BBVA got the Best Banking App Award in the world for its banking application that was developed using this Agile framework. And we were curious, what was this framework about? Well, it was about having building blocks in the sense of having mainly a front, instead of having everyone doing all of the process, it had a front building block that was focused on the relationship with the client. In the case of internal audit, it will be the relationship with the auditees. And then having a separate team that will be devoted to just producing the product. In our case, the audits. Audits are a project. So when you're working with projects, the team, this building block is called solution development, and they work under a Scrum methodology. If you are not doing projects, which will be kind of the change part of the bank, but you are doing the run part of the bank and you are doing processes, these teams are called business execution. And usually they work with a Kanban methodology. Then you have a building block that monitors the correct application of the methodologies for these execution times. And of course, you had a second line of defense. So this was pretty much suited for what we wanted to do. And we decided to use Agile as a lever. And before using it as a lever, we identified two key axes that will help you implement it effectively. One, we call them the levers, and the other one is the organization axis. The first one on the levers is no surprise for you. Is the tone at the top or the support from the top management. If you live in an enterprise in which the CEO and the EVPs or the top management of the company is totally committed to implementing Agile in the whole enterprise, of course, then you have a lot more chances of success. In the case of internal audit, if you have a chief audit executive that is committed to implement Agile, as it was our case, then you have a lot of chances of success. Of course, in the opposite example, if you have the whole enterprise or the whole bank implementing Agile, but the chief audit executive is not convinced, you're not likely to success, or vice versa. Maybe your chief audit executive is very enthusiastic with Agile, but if the rest of the enterprise or your bank is not transforming into Agile, then you will find a lot of resistance and pushback for the project. So it's key to have the support from the top management. If you have the support, then it's very important to have devote things in which you don't allocate resources, usually don't progress. So you need to allocate some resources to do like an Agile discipline area that will monitor and guarantee that we keep the momentum on Agile. And if there is nobody doing this task, the momentum at some point could be lost and it will be much lower. And of course, the human resources need to support with a change of the model, because the old model of resources will not be suitable to an Agile approach. If you have the levers, then you can change the organization. Of course, you will need to change the old internal audit roles because they will not be suited for the new approach. You need to rethink what is your audit life cycle, and I'll go into that just in a moment. And then we need to change the archetype of execution of the audits themselves. Let's start with the internal audit roles. We adapted them to internal audit area in the sense that, remember I talked about front and solutions for the projects. Well, in internal audit, we said we are going to have more or less around 8% of the area in the front side, which is going to be composed of audit partners and the strategy. The front side is devoted to the relationship with the areas, with the audited areas, the delivery of the reports, and the follow-up of the recommendations and the reporting. We'll go into that later. Discipline is monitoring the correct application of the audit methodology. Remember, it was one of the worries about Agile in internal audit. Departing from the methodology, well, discipline is monitoring that we don't depart from the methodology. And then solutions development is where 88% or 90% of the staff is allocated and is composed of program managers who are the leaders for end-to-end execution of the audits, the pool of auditors that can be allocated in a dynamic way to a more dynamic allocation of resources. Then you need to have also your little team for pushing on the Agile transformation. And this team includes the Agile coaches to help everybody navigate through this process. And then we have a people area that is dealing with the talent attraction and retention and the staffing of the audits. So each one of them has clear assignments and responsibilities. And I'll go into that when we see the audit life cycle. Remember, we had to change the audit roles, and we need to change the audit life cycle. Why? Well, the old life cycle, what was in internal audit? It was, okay, an audit just has a planning phase, a fieldwork phase, and a report phase. It was very simple. This mindset, this layout limited our mindset because the focus was placed on producing reports. And the auditors were kind of artisans in the sense that they were in all parts of the process, from the relationship to the areas, the planning of the audits, producing the technically correct audits, delivering the values, doing the follow-up, doing the reporting. Everybody was doing everything. Imagine a car manufacturing industry in which the sellers of cars are also in the engineering side. They are also in the factory of the cars. They are also in the post-selling service of the cars, in all parts of the process. And when you are a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. And especially for internal auditors, for us, usually if we have to keep a balance between developing the relationship with the auditees, collecting information for risk assessment, doing the follow-up, or devoting time for executing properly executed audits, in this battle or in this balance, we were skewed to producing technically correct reports. And the risk assessment and follow-up areas were always losing in this balance or in this battle. How could we fight for this unbalance? Well, Agile has helped us because instead of planning, fieldwork, and report, we think of prioritization phase, execution phase, and delivery phase. And we break the model. We break the mold of everybody doing everything. We will have different roles, each one doing different things, but they are going to be interrelated so we can deliver more value. If we go double click on this, if we go more into detail, you see here prioritization, execution, and delivery. What we want is, since the front side is devoted to developing a professional relationship with the auditees, attending to committees like finance committee, risk committee, new products committees, all kinds of working groups and information sources that allow the front to have a continuous flow of information or an updated flow of information of where the risk is. Remember, in the old model, risk assessment was done at the end of the year, and there was an internal audit plan proposed for the next year. So the adaptation to changes was from 1 year to 1 year. So it was not very dynamic. In this model, the front performs a continuous gathering of information that allows them to continuously know where are the emerging risks or the shift in risk that we have in every moment. And every quarter, they can propose new audits to the prioritization ceremonies. If they are approved for prioritizations, they will be bundled into programs, they will be staffed, they will be planned in conjunction with the program managers from solutions development. And at that moment in time is where the execution part starts. In the execution part, the front side is not working there. It's the people from solutions development. It's the program manager and the teams that are dynamically assigned to the execution. And another specific thing that Agile brought to internal audit was more time devoted to the definition side of the internal audit. Definition side means thinking more about the user stories that were defined by the front side at a high level, bringing them down to a lower level of detail, more detail, especially what are the questions that the audit must answer. Maybe the question is, due to coronavirus, there's going to be more credit risk. So the question is, do we have more or less chances of losses in credit risk in, let's say, retail banking? And then they can think about how to answer that questions. All of that is done in the definition phase. And then we have a sprints of execution phase in which we implemented a new archetype. Before Agile, during the execution phase, it used to be called field work phase. Every boss that the auditors had worked in different ways. Some managers like to be reported every day. Some managers like to be reported every week, etc. People were different. With Agile, we brought up to the table a very homogeneous way of contact points within the team and communication points within the team, not only with the team leader, team manager, or program manager, but across the team, because we have daily meetings, we work in sprints of 2 weeks, we plan at the beginning of the sprint, in a sprint planning ceremony, what are the user stories that are going to be executed and finished during the sprint. We have a sprint review at the end of the sprint, and we have a synchro meeting with the auditees every 2 weeks. And that is a major difference with the traditional methodology. Traditional methodology, there was a waterfall deliver of value after, let's say, 6 weeks of audit. With Agile, we have deliverance of value every 2 weeks. We have a meeting with the auditee that is called synchro, in which we anticipate the findings that internal audit is done. And this greatly impacts on the speed at which the responses and the action plan is done at the end of the audit. And that impacts in a faster issuance of the report at the end. So at the end of the sprints of execution phase, there is a validation by the discipline of the work that the team of solutions development is done. And if the audit complies with the methodology, so we keep being strict with the methodology, then the audit is approved for communication to the audited areas. And that is one of the other roles of the front side. Again, one of the problems that we have with traditional methodology was that the communication of the results of the audit and were done at a too low of a level. What I mean by that is that what is the mission of internal audit? The mission of internal audit is to improve the internal control of the enterprise or the bank for which it works. If you communicate at a too low level, things can get stuck and not much progress can be done. So to make sure that the results are communicated at a high enough level, the front side, which has this relationship, they enter the process at this stage, and they make sure that issues and findings of internal audit are communicated at a high and at an appropriate level so that a course of action is taken. If that is done, then the report is issued, and also the front side does the recommendations follow-up, which is very important. Also, with Agile, the front is the one that is leveraging or that relationship that it has with the auditees to perform a proper follow-up. Remember, in the old model, the focus was put on producing reports. In this model, the focus is putting on making things happen so that an action plan is taken. And this is done much better if we have a devoted team only for recommendations follow-up and are reporting to governing bodies such as the audit committee, or the regulators. So as you can see, not everybody is doing all of the things. We have front side devoted to the prioritization and delivery phases, and a solutions development team focused on the execution phase. This is not totally airtight. There is interrelation between the blocks, but this is the idea that will help us, the people, focus on what they do best at the time and be more efficient. As you can see, we had to adapt the life cycle to the new Agile roles. I will stress again that the methodology does not change. If we had to perform a loan review in the past, now we will perform a loan review in the same way. And supervision is not impaired, it's even enhanced, because it's not only done by the team leader or the program manager, but by the team itself via the Kanban boards, either physical or electronic. What can you expect if you go into implement an Agile? If you go into implement an Agile, it is, what I can say is that it is not a 6-month project. It is not a 1-year project. It is a project that will take you at least 4 to 5 years. It will have 4 stages: adoption, doing, owning, and being. And you can expect the first year just to kick off the project, develop the new roles, explain the project to everybody through roadshows, change the resistance and the pushback, develop an Agile coach team and train them if you don't hire them. We decided to train our own. And after 2 years, maybe you can start, you will be in a do part. People will be partially applying the techniques, will be celebrating the ceremonies, will be using the Kanban boards. And then you will reach a plateau that it's very dangerous, because if you are satisfied in that plateau and you stop pushing forward without continuity, the gains could be lost. People will go back to waterfall deliverance of value. So after 3 years, you need to keep pushing. How? Well, using the Agile coaches, not to facilitate, but to help the team leaders to facilitate, and then focus on changing the mindset, what we call the P part, so that we can walk towards that full implementation of Agile mindset after 4 or 5 years. That's what you can expect. Again, as a conclusion, so what I say is that Agile preserves the foundation and the mission of internal audit. We are still a third line of defense. We are independent. We apply the same methodology, documentation, reports, and follow-up, but we have a better supervision of the subsidiaries, a more dynamic adaptation of the plan. We have a better retention of talent, a faster execution, better communication within the teams, and we keep on improving based on data on key transformation indicators. But like I say, again, it's a long journey. It will help you be more adaptive, and I'm going to show you how it has helped us navigate through the pandemic. Here, there is a picture of an office. It's not a BBVA office, but it's very similar before the pandemic. Open layout, very easy to communicate with your colleagues, even on the sides. We also had meeting rooms and cafeterias, etc. On top of that, we used to travel to countries. For example, in my case, I used to travel to Turkey or USA, and you could have personal contact with the teams that brought you a lot of information. But then in 2020, along came the coronavirus, and all of this was not possible. We had to work from home. And some people thought it was not going to be possible. Some people thought, hey, my little kids are going to interrupt me. I don't have a proper place to work. I don't have a big enough house, or people are not going to be serious about working from home. But it has been possible. Nowadays, we are doing it. Everybody's being serious and is working from home, like I am doing right now, and most of you are doing probably now. And how had it been possible in internal audit of Guarantee BBVA? Well, actually, without knowing, we were already at it, because first of all, we implemented this Agile methodology in 2018, not for navigating pandemic, but for the 5 objectives that I talked about at the beginning of the audit. And it brought a lot of communication within the team. It brought first of all, a prioritization that was global, this continuous risk assessment. We could adapt the audits that we were going to make every quarter and not every year, and we quickly could reallocate the teams. Also with Agile, we bring to the table that every team can do their prioritization. They can focus on the important. They can be more autonomous on decision taking and escalating the incidents. And it fosters communication at 3 levels: within the team, among teams of one country, and in global events like the Global Demo Day that I am responsible of in Guarantee BBVA. With the use of Kanban boards, it had made very easy to work from remote places because everybody can see what the team is doing. We use physical boards at the beginning, then electronic, Jira in most of BBVA. In Guarantee, in Turkey, we developed a digital Kanban board that is called Go Agile. And on top of implementing Agile, in 2019, we, as a pilot project, as an experiment, we started working 1 day per week at home, working from home 1 day as an experiment. And at the beginning, people thought it was not going to be very productive, but it turned out that when the pandemic came, working with Agile, having that communication, together with having the experience and the technology that had allowed us to work from home 1 day per week, we could transform the way of working. And that way is going to be shown in this video I have from my friends in Guarantee Bank, in Guarantee Internal Audit Department. This video, in the first part, you're going to see how communication was improved at the physical level before the pandemic. And in the second part of the video, how the communication is improved via remote working. So please play the video. All right, so I hope you have enjoyed the video. As you can see, I don't know about you, but I don't know how could we have done this in the traditional way. Because in the traditional way, the points of communication of the team will depend, like I say, on a variety of different team leaders, each one having their own. And with Agile, it has brought to the table this homogeneous way of communicating within the team. And also, in the traditional way, every member of the team would have been in their home just thinking about their part of the audit project, while with, as you can have seen in the video, with the boards and the communication and the contact points, everybody knows where all of the team is going and what are the objectives. So at this moment, we are not working from home 100%. We are in a hybrid model, as many of you, around 50% at the office and 50% at home. We have executed the audit plan not only on the objectives, but above the objectives that were set by the audit committee. And we are adapting to the arising risks with this continuous risk assessment. And all of this has helped us to be a more resilient bank, also with the help of applying Agile in internal audit. And that it's all from my side in this presentation. And that concludes the presentation. Çok teşekkürler to everybody. Thank you very much. Mehmet, maybe we want to start a Q&A session now.
Yeah, Celso. What a presentation, huh? I especially like the video. It showed us how effectively you apply the Agile principles, right? Perfect.
Yeah.
We are very grateful for your efforts. And there are so many comments from our participants, actually. Let me ask the first question. What are the results of the transformation which has been performed in Garanti BBVA?
Well, I have to go back. That very related with the objectives that we set up. We measure based on data. We use even before Agile, we use key performance indicators for the production of internal audit, which we still use, and they are better. They are better in these traditional indicators where, for example, the voice of the auditees, voice of had been much improved. In fact, during the pandemic, we reached net promoter scores of too high level. I mean, levels of which only fan level like Apple or BMW brands can reach 80%. We are now like around 65% net promoter score from the auditees. It's one indicator. In terms of speed of issuance, we have decreased the average time to market. Sometimes in the magnitude from taking 45, 60 days, that means 2 months, to issue a report, to on average, we are issuing reports in 10 days, 14 days after the finish of the audits. But more importantly, more than the faster the issuance of the report is that we have flattened the curve of production of audits. We used to not produce many reports at the beginning of the year, everybody working on the projects, and then everybody delivering all of the audits before the summer holidays, which was very bad for the impact on the auditees who received these audits just before they had to leave on holidays. Then after the summer holidays, we didn't deliver that much value. And then just before the Christmas holidays, again, another package of audits was issued. With Agile, we have successfully flattened this curve, and we have a steady, homogeneous way, and we issue the same number of reports every month. And we don't have that related with the stations, and it has improved a lot the perception of internal audit. And of course, we have managed in other indicators.
Good for you that you measured your success actually with all these parameters. Now I will move on to next question. Yeah, Have you encountered no agile in audit approaches? If so, how did you overcome it? It's a good question.
Mehmet, could you repeat the question? I'm not sure I understand.
Have you encountered no agile in audit approaches? If so, how did you overcome it?
You mean no agile or new agile?
No agile in audit. Come on. There should be no agile in audit, people.
Yeah, pushback and resistance, of course.
Yeah,
of course. We have, like any organization, we have promoters and we have people that are detractors. So, but what I can say is that we work hard to increase the percentage of promoters and to convince the detractors to transform them to promoters, and that's what we strive to do. For example, in our global demo days that we do every quarter, I will tell you that we have a 60% net promoter score. Usually we have very little detractors, but yes, we do have them. How can you work on the detractors? The main leverage there, Mehmet, is the coaching. This has to be followed. You need to identify who the detractors are, and you need to work with them to help them understand with tender love and care, explanation. Most of the people have a resistance to what they don't know, but once you explain them properly, they can be either converted into believers in the systems when they see the advantages for them.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Celso. Thank you so much. And we have 2 minutes, but I think we can take 2 more questions, and I will move on to my next question. You mentioned many committees. Has there been a decrease in the number of these committees with the transparency after Agile and BBVA?
Overall, I would say so. I would say yes. Of course, there are committees that are there for a regulatory reason, so they cannot be eliminated. They need to be there. Probably mostly regulators, they demand that you have a risk committee, that you have an ALCO or assets and liability committee or a compliance committee. There are many committees that you cannot, but I would say so. At least in internal audit, I can assure you that now there used to be lots of committees, but now there is down mostly to 2. We have a transformation working group, and we have a strategic working group that is of a higher level. And of course, we have an audit committee, but more or less these are, so I would say yes, it has impacted in a reduction of the number of committees.
Perfect. Now, okay, then last question then. Auditing is one of the areas in the world where the hierarchy is rigid in general. How do you feel about transition from hierarchy to more network type structure?
I feel great. I think that people are, of course, you will find that is one of the main points of resistance or pushback, especially at the top of the pyramid. You will find that people fear losing a status when they don't know what is it about. But after some practice within this working methodology, people realize that there is no reason to fear it. I mean, there are still roles. There is still the audit partner, there is the program manager, there is a team leader. It doesn't mean that there is no, just because you implement Agile, doesn't mean that there is no order within the organization. But what it means is that the teams work with a lot more transparency, and it brings a lot of opportunities for the hard workers to have lots of more visibility of the value that they bring to the organization. And it doesn't matter if you are at the top, in the middle, or at the bottom. If you are a hard worker with Agile methodology, your visibility will be much greater. So if you're a hard worker person, there is nothing to worry about. On the contrary, you will be recognized easier, in an easier way, I would say.
Thank you, Celso. Thank you so much. It was very inspiring, your presentation and your answers to the questions. It was great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Mehmet, for bringing me this opportunity. And thank you, Turkey. I hope I can travel there and visit you in person soon. So thank you very much.